Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Hi, everyone. I am Lexi Ostrow. I write across a variety of romance genres, everywhere from young adult all the way up to spicy fantasy, steampunk, you name it, and it's pretty much all in there somewhere. So today I've grabbed a copy. It's not a spicy book. It's actually called The Flames They Lost. It is a new adult, borderline adult, high fantasy with romance elements in it. The reason I've grabbed this one is this is the one that's been all a buzz for me on Amazon for the last couple weeks. A little bit of background on the book is that we have two professors at an academy as opposed to students. And one of them is a beastmaster, and one of them is a young woman who has no magic of her own. Unfortunately for her, when you have no magic of your own, you're technically not allowed to live in this parallel dimension. But her parents are very well respected professors, and her brother is a law enforcer. So they've made an exception to bring on gifted humans to teach human studies like math, English, science, so that students who fail their magical powers, when they get kicked out into the human world, they don't die without a job to pay their bill. So that's how she's been brought in. What's going on up until now is that somebody has been stealing the dragon, because a dragon's flames is what gives a wizard their magic. And of course, a high fantasy would be nothing without some evil old wizard with a beard trying to steal all the magic for himself. I'm actually starting on chapter 10, so kind of cheating you guys out of a little bit of the content. Niall's heart slammed into his chest, and the stables grew smaller around him as blackness touched along the edge of his peripheral vision. Rapidly, the outer rings of black drew together, leaving Niall with little more than pinpricks to view the stables through. Not a piece of straw was out of place. Not a single stall door unlatched, never mind even opened. No blood lay on the cement floor, and not a sign of injury was evident on the 13 dragons who remained in the stable as the sun rushed in with the open door. Only there were supposed to be 17 dragons, not 13. They could come and go as they pleased. There were only 2 outside, the rest in the barn this morning, which meant he had a missing number. Niall leaned sideways and would have fallen if not for Jamal by his side, propping him up with his wing. 2 were missing. This can't be possible. Zimdale's grounds were warded, spelled, and charmed against unwanted entry. Only students, staff, and graduates could access the school. They were the only ones who could even see it under the cloak of invisibility that hid it. Niall, calm down. Emma sounded far too detached for a beastmaster, never mind a tamer. Calm down, Niall hissed, his anger at her emotionless response colliding with his fear for his dragons. You want me to go ahead and steal 2 phoenixes and see how you feel? The lack of consciousness that threatened him just moments ago vanished. They're not spelled to the school. They probably flew off and lost track of time. Niall held himself with little restraint. Emma was his closest friend. She was the one who alerted him to the open position at Zimdale's, which made her lack of concern troubling. Do you have a right to suspect her? Niall couldn't shake the thought as he glanced at his oldest friend. Her dark skin was often the same color as a topaz spitfire's scale. The morning sun kissed her light brown skin and seemed to make it shimmer just like her dragon's. Tight black curls stayed magically against her head with a crown of white flowers laced between the curls. If she were attracting dragons, she would be the perfect person to do it. Her beauty alone would throw the viewer off their trail. You realize how insane you sound, don't you? He stepped closer, his boots thumping into Emma's. Hannah is not a hatchling. She knows the rising sun and would never be missing for breakfast. A meal that still dangled from the rafters, taunting every dragon present, seemed to confirm his suspicions. Against his morals, Niall froze them in place to search for the missing 2. I need to get to Zoe. Niall was willing to risk exposing his secret to the wrong person because he didn't believe Zoe was the wrong person. She's also literally the only one who can help. Knock, knock. You don't. Oh. Zoe broke off, and Niall didn't miss the look of alarm as she looked between Emma and him. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Zoe, stop. This isn't what it looks like. Does it matter what it looks like at 8 in the morning? I don't know what's happening between the 2 of you. Emma glanced between Zoe and Niall. But I'm going to call this in. We can't sit on this. We can't ignore missing dragons. She nodded to Zoe. Nice to see you again. Emma stepped around Niall and gave a small wave. He should be the one reporting his dragons missing. It won't matter. Stay with Zoe, figure this out. She's the only one who can speak to them. What's going on? Zoe arched a brow. We need to talk. Niall rubbed his hands over his face and sighed. I've kept a secret from everyone for over a year, and I think it's time someone knew. You're not going to unleash some sort of dark magic, are you? Zoe didn't take a step back, but her voice trembled a bit. God, no. I'm doing this all wrong because I'm frustrated. Let me try again. Niall sucked in a deep breath and held it until the burn began to build in his chest. Exhaling through his mouth, he tried again. I was training and selling all kinds of creatures up north when I noticed less and less hatchlings 3 seasons ago. Niall sat on a bale of hay. Zoe didn't say a word, but she didn't seem like she needed him to rush for her benefit. A month or so later, a pair of wild dragons I'd been attempting to tame went missing. Boulder mouth dragons barely moved throughout their life, and I wanted to get them to a good home. Their disappearance was unnerving, and I originally thought schools were stealing wild dragons to further the flames that kept their magic burning. No one still understands how the flames create the particles that raise the magic, but a school wanting to beat another school or be able to boast the best students made the most sense to me. So you came to Zimdale's. Not originally, no. I started at Beckman's. They didn't keep more than a single dragon on their premises and had no use for a beastmaster. If a student shows skill in that discipline, they test them on unicorns instead. Emma told me about the position here. And you think Zimdale's is stealing dragons then? But why steal our own? That's just it. I did think it was someone here until now. The old beastmaster went missing in action after a vacation, so at first I assumed it was her. The disappearance had happened, but only to eggs all throughout last year. That's why there aren't more younglings? You're getting it, finally. Funny. Sorry for trying to follow along in this crazy plan you're unveiling. Right. My dragons were stolen right under my nose. I'm going to be testy, but I swear to you, I don't mean to be, and you're the only person alive who can help. Literally. Niall cleared the strain from his throat and prayed his voice would hold out after his shouting at Emma earlier. When the first eggs were laid this summer, I took them. I hid them in places best suited for their type, and that's where I disappeared to at night. To bring dragonfire. I go with Jamald a few times a week. As a male, he's less likely to draw attention to the eggs. Why haven't you informed the Bureau? Why did Emma just say she had to do that? Or have you, and they're being exceptionally quiet and terrible watchers? I didn't. They were the next on the list for the perfect suspects. I had no idea if there would be an end to the thieving, but I couldn't leave these dragons here. They're too tame in some regards and wouldn't defend themselves as well as a wild dragon. And I'm important because I can talk to them and see what's happening. A huge smile spread over her lips, and though Niall should be annoyed, he understood. Zoe finally had a magical gift and one she could use. Exactly. Before the attempt here, I wouldn't have thought the Bureau would know anything. Now that someone has clearly been here to steal the dragons, one of them must have seen it happen. Zoe literally pushed up the sleeves on her button down. Let's go then.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors, and season 3 is going amazingly. So exciting. Incredible authors. What can I say? Today we have the fabulous Miss Lexi. Hi, sweetie. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I am thrilled to have you. And by the way, you write right up my alley because you have series with dragons, you have dragon shapeshifters in some of your series, and you write all the time. So before I get carried away in my own passion, desire to know all about your books, let's stick with this one. I'm bringing it back. What is this story about? Where did it come from? Give us the insight.
So this story, like a lot of mine, came from me being a horrible person and scrolling pre-made cover groups as opposed to writing my books. And I bumped into this cover that had a Dragon Academy feature. And at the point in time when this came around, all of the Academy covers were like, cute young girls and boys with like balls of witch magic in their hand. So I was like, oh, a dragon one. And then I got it and I was like, I can't do anything normal. I can't write an Academy story. So I was like, well, what could happen at an Academy that doesn't involve the student? I'm terrible at mystery books, so I don't actually know how this came to play. But all of a sudden, it just kind of came out that these dragons were getting stolen because their flames are what power the magic, which is why they're so important. We were going to need a girl who was, unsuspectingly boring to be the big hero that could come in and save the day. So maybe not boring in this case, but she was powerless until this is unlocked. And I don't want to give away a spoiler, but it's actually not a magical gift. And that kind of comes into play in that towards the middle of the book, and it'll come out pretty heavily in book 2.
Oh, I love it. So I don't do well with trends. I always seem to be behind or in my own little bubble. While I have seen all the Academy books come out, I guess I didn't get it. That was the thing happening. I was like, oh, that's great. Another school. So I love the fact that you took the concept, there's an academy, but we don't care about the kids. I'm like, whoa, radical. Just gonna mix the whole kids up. It's like you're there, side product of beauty school, not gonna concern about it. That's pretty fun. Why dragons? I want to dig in your obsession with dragons because I have one too. What is it with you and dragons, Beb?
I honestly have no good answer. Ever since I was a little kid, it's always been dragons. I was not the little girl that was unicorns or mermaids, although I do still love unicorns thanks to some authors, but I was very much dragons. I think maybe just the imposition that they present when you see them, especially you can on a screen for the first time or on a book cover. It's jarring. They're not this nice, pretty creature. They're beautiful in their own way, but they're not this soft, fuzzy, creature that you kind of expect in high fantasy novels. God, I don't remember how old I was. I think 2010, How to Train Your Dragon came out, and I was just immediately sold and hooked. We thought it was really interesting that for the first 3 or 4 years of my career, dragons didn't appear at all.
That is really interesting.
They just weren't there. They weren't mentioned. They weren't like a side plot. They just weren't there. I was driving angels and demons, and that was pretty much my entire focus. And it still is a much larger part of my focus. But when I sat down and kind of was like, I'm a little tired of writing the spice. There's only so many times you can put body parts in different positions and different rooms and locations before you're like, I need to take a break. I'm getting burnt out. And I was like, I have to do dragons. And that's kind of when they started to get introduced. And since I'm more of a paranormal writer than a fantasy writer, I started with the dragon shifter because that's more along the lines of what my brain triggers, what my audience expects. And it just seemed like a good starting point. And then from there, even in that book, that was the first time I touched high fantasy. And I remember telling my husband I was never doing it again, that there is so many moving pieces that it made steampunk look easy because you have to have a map and you have to have a language and you have to have special creature names and you have to have rules. I was like, this is just so much more intense than paranormal romance could ever be. And then about 6 months after I finished, I was doing it again. So I
See,
either was glutton for punishment or I found a way around it. And I'm pretty sure I'm just a glutton for punishment because every like 20 or 30 minutes while I was writing The Flames They Lost, I would like names, word. I think at one point when I was describing an area, I literally put like Fork Meadow rename later inside the book. I think I'm just a glutton for punishment.
maybe a little. I won't actually disagree with you because this could be a possibility, but I think every writer is, so we cannot even go too far down that hole. You write in multiple genres. How do you decide what to write when and when something's going to come out? How does that work for you?
So I'm really awful about this. And I actually have gotten, which are kind of cool, but I've gotten a couple nasty grams from readers like, what happened to this? Why did you stop doing this? I pretty much let it go as long as it wants to go. If the characters are screaming in my head from a certain genre, they're going to take precedence. It actually happened to me just now. I was writing a steampunk book that I was absolutely in love with. Went to bed, had a dream, woke up, couldn't write the steampunk. Had to take a pause. I wrote about 75 pages in that and then was able to go back to the steampunk. So it kind of just whichever's screaming loudest or whichever cover. I try to be trendy really hard. And I'm normally a year and a half late because I'll buy the cover, I'll get the idea. And then I'm like, but I'm already writing something else. Normally, if I'm reading a lot of something, I think the characters start to scream a little louder from that genre because it's on my mind. And I'm the author that is not like, I won't read smut because I'm writing smut, or I won't read shapeshifters because I'm writing shapeshifters. Because for me, I don't learn how to write from manuals, even though I do have my bachelor's in creative writing and my master's in journalism. I learn to write by reading because when I read other people's words, it strengthens my ability to play with them. And when I see their plots, it gives me ideas for how I can write plots that don't look like theirs so that I'm not emulating them, to an extent where it's like, well, who's who? So I know I'm a little strange there.
No, I love the fact that you're able to dissect other people's works. And even Stephen King says you have to read in order to be a good writer. And sometimes we get so lost in the whole fact that we must write that the reading tends to fall by the wayside. So I love that you do it and that you learn so much from it. I think that's amazing. Do you have a favorite genre?
To read or write?
Both. Which one? You pick.
All right. So to write, probably paranormal romance, but specifics on angels and demons. I blame that on the wonderful women who got me into reading when I was in middle school. And high school and college because Sherilyn Kenyon / Sherilyn McQueen now, Larissa Young, Gina Showalter, Cressley Cole, that was the core of their worlds. They deviated sometimes, but that was what they wrote. And that's kind of what made me fall in love. And when it came time for me to write, I was like, well, who do I like fantasizing about? And I was like, well, that's easy. But reading is actually a sharp turn. It's paranormal. I don't want to say thriller, but paranormal thriller mystery. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Heather Graham. She's one of the, biggest mystery writers that nobody talks about for some reason. And
That is very true. She doesn't get mentioned a lot. Yeah.
she doesn't, because she writes the ghosts, because ghosts help her solve her mysteries. And I feel like she gets lumped into a different category, minus the fact that I can figure out who has done the dirty deed, 3 or 4 pages in, because there's a formula. I literally read her all day, every day when I get a chance. She's one of the few that I will reread.
That is awesome. You write in series. Do you did that on purpose, or do you ever decide I'm going to do standalone? You're shaking your head. Oh God, tell us. I'm worried.
I think I have one standalone that stayed a standalone. In some instances, my very first book that I ever published was intended to be a book series. My second series that I published was intended to be a book series. And then from there, I was attempting to be like, I'm just going to write standalones, because specifically you can get very bored writing a series for a long period of time. I've seen some of the greats talk about how tedious it can become staying in the same world for 15 books or 10 books. So I tried to kind of want to stay away from it, because I know that if I grew bored as an author, even if an editor cleaned up my work, I'm probably boring my readers.
That makes sense.
But I fail a lot. I'll be outlining a book and it will be solidly a standalone. The Flames They Lost is a perfect example of that. Very cut and dry. Dragons were going missing. Somebody found out they could talk to the dragons, but the dragons didn't want to talk back. The story was their journey to find the right dragons that would speak to her and to figure out what was going on. Well, I finished the book and I went, well, now she has this power and she doesn't have the training and she has a boyfriend. We have all these things. And I was like, no, just ignore it. And then this book came out at a book convention, Literally Love Savannah. Within about a month, everyone who had purchased a copy asked when book 2 was coming. And I was like, there is no book 2. It was standalone. High fantasy is a standalone for me. It's not a serial. About 2 days later, I messaged a couple of them and I was like, well, here's the outline. What do you think?
I'll give you credit for starting out as a standalone.
I think I have one book and I have wanted to make it a series. I have outlined 2 or 3 books, but I feel like it steals the intention of the first book, because it is not a happy book. It is a very depressing book. The idea would have basically been that it would have followed other guardian angels and women or men with fatal illnesses. And I realized that even though there are a lot of illnesses that deserve this recognition, that their stories deserve to be told, it would take away from the importance of what this other book had done. I think that was my moral high ground, where I was like, I'm not adding to it, even though they're outlined, they're in a binder, but I don't think I'm ever going to touch them.
At least you understand there's no, this is not going to happen for this reason. I like the way you rationalize that. That's pretty nice. So tell me, you write in different genres, but you also write for different age group as well. How did you decide to balance that? And do you have different pen names for these different groups? So is it all Lexi?
It's all Lexi. One, because I am not skilled or put together enough to monitor a pen name. I have my personal profile, which Facebook does not let me use Lexi because they got mad at me. So it has to be Alexis. And I created a Lexi profile to engage with people. I log in maybe once every 7 months. So it gave me a very quick slice of, you will not survive as a pen name. You will put all of your effort into one name, even though Lexi Ostrow is my legal name, technically. Alexis is. But I was like, I don't touch that profile. I've grown into the habit of tagging it whenever I post on my personal profile, just to try to make people feel like I'm active on it. But I have so many inboxes that go unanswered and I feel terrible. I get tagged in things that I don't know I'm tagged in because I'm not looking at it at all. So it just became very apparent that I was not mentally suited to manage a pen name like some of the amazing authors who can. And I also put so much work into building this name before the different ages came out. It almost felt a shame to back away from a USA Today bestselling name to start over. I have caught in flack for it. The reason I jumped into different age brackets was actually by necessity of the story itself. I love writing Christmas romances, and somebody challenged me to do a Christmas fairy tale. And as I was writing it, I was like, if I saw a book in a bookstore with Cinderella on the cover or Sleeping Beauty, I would assume that my child could read it regardless of what section it was in. So it occurred to me that you need to tone it down. So there is the occasional curse words because these characters have to be old enough where they can fall in love
Okay.
and get married. And if I try to keep things as realistic as possible, and in reality, the average mid-20-year-old curses. They do.
They
They,
do.
they make bad jokes, they make raunchy jokes, and they curse. I'm kind of more of the new adult than the young adult, but I've had a bunch of younger readers like message me about those series that they are reading them. So I felt comfortable making that distinction. I've joined in a couple of young adult projects to kind of flesh out my skills in that area because it's definitely hard for me to be like, oh, you don't say that word. You don't discuss that body part. That body part is not acceptable in this book, or that's not a concept you can bring up. You can touch upon some of the harsher topics like death or dare I say rape that the adult books can function. But by and large, like you're supposed to know to pull back. So I'm trying to strengthen the difference in plotting for adult and plotting for young adult right now.
I am with you because I have one name and everything falls in that category. And I play from children's books all the way up to devotional and everything in between. So those are the questions that I ask people. When did you decide to have a pen name? And do you have multiple? And I'm with you, like, you got more than one? Like, my heart goes out to you because that's amazing. I have struggling with one newsletter. You want me to do multiple? Like, not going to happen. So thank you. You officially have become my tribe. I was like, thank you, Lexi, because I ended
I
up
am
finding.
on your side. I am in awe of those men and women, but I am just not up to their levels.
In your career, how long have you been writing for and how long have you been publishing for?
So I started writing in second grade. I was always the book nerd. I was always reading. I want to say it was still Goosebumps back then. And the librarian caught me like reading them. And I was one of the few kids that was reading. And she basically invited me to join this after school writing club. And I was immediately hooked. I took creative writing whenever they would offer it as an elective in high school. And then I actually went on to get my bachelor's in creative writing. So I've always been writing. Technically, I was published in second grade. I wish I had it still to really remember what it was, but we did this thing where the class wrote a story and then it was sent off to a judge and the winners had their books illustrated and turned into a book. And then you got to be at a book signing. I wish I remembered more of it because I just remember like being so in awe of all of the other authors there. Like Bruce Coville was there and that was like my world back then.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't focus on anything. So I remember nothing, but like I have this giant laminated thing with signatures from like everybody that was at the book signing and all of these other kids that had helped me. My friends in the class got to illustrate it. It was this big, huge thing. Yeah, I went to private school. Side note, not sure if this is a normal endeavor or if just all those extra bucks my dad decided to drop to education came in handy. Like for real, I started writing for the newspaper in high school. And my first book was summer of 2015. So kind of a long journey from, I want to say like 1993 until 2015.
It all comes together and there's nothing wasted. I try to explain this to people. All of the life's journeys and everything we have come into these amazing stories because, hey, you are a very prolific writer. You write all the time. How many books do you have out? Because I don't think our readers are prepared, our listeners are prepared for this. How many do you have?
So in total, there are 53 that are out, but some of them are technically no longer out because they were in anthologies that have come down in the last couple weeks. So they'll be out again soon, republished as standalone titles, but 53 total. And then the goal, knock on wood, because I am already struggling. My goal is 12 new releases for this year, which is actually what I was doing prior to the pandemic starting.
You published that and I was an odd. I was like, and here I am aiming for 4. Like, see, I'm living through you, but I love it. I'm so excited. It's just because your energy is coming back. It is contagious. And you're creating this universe. And I'm like, oh, that's what I'm talking about. Go on, Lexi. Go on, Lexi.
Opening, and I've already hit a dead end because I'm still writing. But like I said, I was writing this steampunk book and then all of a sudden this not for me genre was like, hi there, can we have a chat? Because we're going to let all of your selfish like fantasies come out in this one book. And I was derailed from my current book for about a week. So when I go to write this other book I set myself to write it in April. I have 75 pages of it written, but it also knocked me backwards a week in this current book. So I'm already like biting my nails, like freaking out. Like, am I going to make all of my deadlines? Most importantly with my editor, but then with Amazon.
Okay, you cannot miss your deadlines at Amazon. They're very mean about this. They're not the ones to play with.
They give you a 1-month grace period, and
that's it.
That is it.
This is why I'm dreading putting things on pre-order because I was like, you have to commit. You got to commit. You got this.
I'm actually, for the last couple of years, I was very pre-order focused, and I realized that you can't do that if you can't figure out what you're writing when. So I just made a list of what's coming. I've outlined them all because I can't pants, even though my outlines are 80% ignored by my characters. And I'm like, so I've started putting the pre-orders up only once I've crossed the 80% completion line, the current book. So that way it's not as intimidating. And I'm giving them like a 2-month lead so that hopefully it's not as intimidating when I go to actually write them and like finish them.
Lexi, I like your plan. I am all with you. So, sweetie, I can talk to you all day, but you do have words to put on paper. So let's get you focused. Where can our listeners find you? Where are you at? Where can they get all of your books? Tell us.
So all of my books are on Amazon, ebook, paperback, and most are in audio. But then due to me not being content with just being on Amazon, I guess, a handful of them are also wide across all retailers from Nook to Kobo. It is a slow process because I was in KU for so long that even though I've unpublished the story from KU, it still has, the 3-month span or the 2-month span left that it has to run. So from now until March 27th, my entire backlist will be added, but it's currently about 15 that you can find everywhere right now.
Ooh, I like the fact you're transitioning. That's really exciting. Any websites that people can go look for you if they're looking to learn more about Lexi?
Just to learn more about me, all I've got is my actual author website. It has a blog, which I feel like gives you a little better look into me than just the website itself, but it's just my name, lexiostrow.com.
Awesome. So, listeners, you can find over 50 books in this entire collection that can go absolutely amazing. So, I'm super excited. Sweetie, before you leave us, are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh, well, that sounds intimidating. Yeah, let's do it.
Easy peasy. Don't think too hard on this. Let's see how you do. First one, water or soda?
Water.
Nice. Fruit or veggie?
Ooh, fruit.
You have to think about it. You're like, oh God, oh God.
Both?
You can do both. I'll give you that one. All right. City or country?
City.
Nice. Fall or spring?
Fall.
Here's a little different. Let's see how you do with this one. If your life was turned into a movie, who would you like to play you?
Brooke and even.
That did not take you any time. Like that was on point.
But I
Why?
have no 7th grade.
Do you have any closing remarks for us, sweetie? Anything you want to tell us?
I just want to say thank you, and I'm excited to do this. I've never done a podcast before, and this was fun.
God, I am so thrilled that I'm your first podcast. Go me. Go me. Woo! You need to do more podcasts because we're absolutely fun and amazing. So I am excited. To our listeners, I am so excited you guys to join us. So excited to introduce the fabulous Miss Lexi to you, madame. It's been a pleasure. Follow Miss Lexi, give us some love, share with your friends, and I will see you all back again next week. And big heads up, next week we're going to be doing a birthday celebration from Monday through Friday. You will have a brand new author, so be prepared for 5 amazing episodes coming at you. So bye, everyone.